Hello everybody. Thank you so much for inviting me to this conference and getting a glimpse into the Second Chance project, which seems to be very, very interesting. How does a creative city look like? How does a creative place look like? And how do they become creative? But I couldn't help myself asking these questions after having read the Second Chance book, Revitalization Through Arts and Culture, that was sent to me as an inspiration to prepare for this conference. Well, one very simplistic way to get an indication on how we perceive a creative city is to, I'm not an academic, I'm not a researcher, but I wanted to test it by searching Google Images. So I've just put creative city in Google Image and what comes out. And this is what comes out. The images are all about buildings, the roads, and trees. Sometimes it's skyscrapers with different lights of colors on them, very creative. Again and again, houses, buildings, but never people. The creative cities never have people in the images. So what about if you test creative place? What happens? What kind of result you get? Well, to my surprise, more or less all the pictures look like this. So a creative place is then quite different from a creative city. And, well, I don't know, but maybe a creative city is built up by many different interconnected creative places and with a human scale. Let's get back to that. I come from a European network of independent cultural centers called Trans-Europulse, and we're about 50 centers in 29 countries in Europe. Basically, all centers are located in old factories or buildings that were built for an entirely different purpose than for arts and culture. And for our members who are running these spaces, this image doesn't really communicate creative place, but rather vacation, a vacation that I will never have. And do you want to know how a place looked like that they would consider, wow, this is great, I can start being creative here? Are you ready? Yes, here it comes. It's obvious. Anyone who recognizes this place? It's not, you know which city it is? Well, this is a metaphor for what I want to say, but this is Malmö in southern Sweden. It's not taken from their tourist brochure. It could also look like this. This is Polymer, an old toy factory on the outskirts of Tallinn in Estonia. And this is how it looked like when the artists and NGOs came to the place and they fell in love with it. And I would say that what's common for all the members of Trans-Europulse is that what they see in such an abandoned and shabby place is a lot of potential. Artistic freedom, possibilities of creating an alternative meeting place that is not yet designed for a function by policymakers and developers and investors. Opportunities for creating something together and using or reusing existing resources. And here's what they did. They just came together and built a green terrace. Well, here you see it from the other angle. All the centers in Trans-Europulse have started as grassroots movements, bottom-up movements, transforming abandoned industrial buildings and green spaces into vibrant cultural centers around Europe. And they have done that by identifying the deficiencies and need for arts and culture in their societies, identifying abandoned and neglected spaces and seeing their potential, and by engaging with the community and getting down to action instead of talking, they transform these spaces into places for creation with an alternative creative and cultural program. And this has happened around Europe since the early ages, and some centers are today quite established cultural institutions, whereas some are in the process and are fighting for recognition, as for example in Spain, Romania, Serbia, etc. I've been asked to tell you some stories of how cultural actions have contributed to change in local societies in different places in Europe. And we've heard today from Professor Kunzmann about the slow movement. And I think that the stories I'm going to tell, they've been quite slow because there has not been funding in place, and then you need to gradually, find the resources to build up things. But I also want to introduce the scale of big and small, and I'm going to now work on the dimension of small. Well, the story starts in Slovakia, always a good place to start. This is Stanica. It's Slovakian and means railway station, as well as I'm informed. This railway station was abandoned, not in use. So a local NGO in Žilina, this is Žilina, Western Slovakia, could negotiate with the Slovak railway company to take it over and rent it for 25 years for a very symbolic rent. When they took it over, the area posed some challenges. You can see it here from the top. The building is surrounded by a motorway viaduct, and to the left there's an industrial area which is abandoned and quite unsafe. And to the right there's a social housing area, but no playground for kids, no activities for families. So what they did, this NGO, was that they engaged a lot of volunteers in the city, a lot of young people, and let's get this old station into shape. And they started to renovate it. And today it's a fully functional center with performing spaces, cafes, sleeping facilities, offices, and studios for artists. The funding for this was that they did it slowly with local partners. I know there are several grandmothers who put their savings into this because they had to support their grandchildren. And at the same time, on the other side of the viaduct, you had a neglected, overgrown, and desolate place where rather dodgy business was going on in the nights. So at the same time, when they were renovating this house, they decided, let's clean up this area close to the building. And again, this was the work of volunteers. And there was some, sorry, I'll try to fix this. Architecture students, it's fine now, I think. Yeah. To help out. So while at it, they made a playground for families. This was very good for both the housing area and for all the visitors to the cultural center. And hold down now, this was all done by volunteers. This was actually the first green area built in Žilina town for 20 years, and it's all done by volunteers, their own initiative. And another project still to be realized, because this motorway viaduct, it constituted a challenge, and an interesting one, because on the right side you had the old railway station's house, and then you had the new park they created, and thought, well, there's a roof here actually, so what we need are some walls. And we really need a new performing space. How do we do that? We don't have money. Well, that's never been a problem before. So there's one building material that we have in abundance in Slovakia. What could that be? Southern Germany, perhaps it's the same. Empty beer crates. So they actually built this with beer crates, empty ones, of course, and all other reused building material, and also volunteers involved and some local construction companies. And here's the end result, and they're really proud that the National Slovak Theatre has performed there. So Stanica, this NGO, they see themselves as the one who connects drops of water into one river. They connect different sectors, like small companies, other NGOs, the different municipalities of the region, and encourage them to cooperate. The results? Well, by involving the community, People get ownership. We built this, we did this is ours. And by involving the community, you create new relationships and strong relationships. And this is sustainable and long-term thinking that really empower the communities. I want to give you an example of a small artistic intervention and its impact on local governments. And then we need to move to Bostina. If you don't know where that is, I'll tell you. It's in the Rhodope Mountains in Bulgaria. And this is a road in Bostina on a sunny day. It's a village of 150 inhabitants. We have a small member center there, Pro Rhodope Art Center. But imagine this road on a rainy day. A really rainy day. No ambulance, no fire brigade can pass here. No trucks can deliver wood to the houses. And of course, people have complained about this for years to the municipality in Smoljan, 15 kilometers away. But nothing happens. So as part of a Transeuropol's project, PRAC, the Pro Rhodope Art Center, invited a young Scottish artist and paired him with a Bulgarian designer, and they asked them, what do you think we should do with this road? It's a problem here. So they decided to fix the road, a part of the road, and to make it into an art installation. People in the village, they were quite skeptic about this. Scottish artist, what is he doing here? Where's Scotland, by the way? But then when the actual work started to happen, 15 people showed up and wanted to help out and volunteer. Then when the local government understood what was happening, the mayor actually sent 3 of his workers to help out for 3 weeks. And at the celebration of the short artistic road, the Bulgarian national TV came and started to make interviews. What happened here? This had never happened in Bostina before. And then the mayor decided, well, the 3 workers that should be there for 3 weeks, let's keep them for 6 months. They should clean up the roads, the forest, the river. They should fix that wall that have been threatening to tumble down on the road where the people walk every day, and to fix that. So the aim of this project has been to connect people with art, and that it can be actually something very concrete and tangible, but it also is about to empower. Petar Todorov, the project leader, he said, and thinking back about the project, people don't believe that they have control over their life, that it's not up to them, it's not depending on them. They don't believe in words anymore. With this project, we have sown a seed for people to be confident in that you can make a change if you insist. With our network, we connect people and organizations like Stanica and Pro Rhodope Art Center, and there are 50 of them. And by getting inspired by each other, sharing experience and knowledge, and setting up both capacity building projects as well as artistic projects, they get energy and inspiration to continue their work. In Transeuropol's, we aim to be concrete, specific, and straightforward. We just realized that's a winning concept with our members. And therefore, we run through a European-funded project called Engine Room Europe, among many things, a staff exchange program where we make it possible for their technicians, administrators, producers, communication managers, chefs to go for 1 week or 2 weeks to another center in another country and see how it works there. Get a new perspective on your own work and maybe share your impression with the hosting center. We also do a mentorship program connecting senior leaders and emerging leaders for 1 year at a time. The Center Stanica that I told you about before, they have been so successful in how to build and renovate using only reusable and very cheap material that they now this summer, in cooperation with us in the network, are organizing an international workshop in August. So if you run an independent cultural center or a space, and if you have some architectural challenges, I guess you have, especially if it's an old one, You can bring your issues to this workshop, and you will meet with a team of volunteer architects and the Stanitsa team who did this, and get help to find a solution that won't cost a fortune. On our website, we're building a platform that we call the resource, and there we try to gather all these hands-on tips on sharing experience and how you can do things. It's all connected to running independent art spaces. This is just an example. It's a manual of how to document your own projects, keep trace of them, and make them lively. We also have a sustainability section. You can find the manual, 8 steps to a more sustainable building. It's very much based on our seminars on creative strategies for sustainability. We had one last year in Berlin. We will have another one this year. And it brings together cultural operators and artists from all over Europe to can be building a straw bale building, but also reflecting and talking about how you solve issues related to sustainability. And all that comes out of this that is really worth sharing comes into the resource. So it doesn't just stay with the group who did the workshop, but is free for anyone to use. Last week we organized a conference in Sant Boi, which is a small town outside of Barcelona in Spain. And they're a group of young volunteers. They have during 10 years semi-legally organized a lot of events, a lot of concerts in an old derelict cultural center, which is now closed. And they have some conflicts with the local governments. It's on the surface, it's about health and security, but if you scratch a bit on the surface, it's about control and influence, and who has the right to have a say in the cultural program of the city. So as a network, we decided to support this group called Atheneus Sant Boi to set up an international conference called Reclaiming Public Space Through Culture. And they organized all the logistics and the program for the conference in their free time during 1 year. And we could bring in some European money, and we could also suggest international speakers from other parts of Europe to show both how successful a deeper cooperation between NGOs and the municipality can be when both sides respect each other's roles and understand each other's capacities. But there were also some other worrying examples. So when the Atheneus Sant Boi people, when they sat down last week to think, evaluate the whole process, it was a 1-year process leading to this conference. What did it achieve for them and their group? And they told me that the biggest achievement was that they felt a big change in the attitude from the local government. From being seen as teenage troublemakers and squatters who organized a lot of late and loud events, they're now seen as much more professional and serious group of people with a long-term plan and vision who can contribute to the development of the local society. And I guess you can see in this, I guess you can all see in this picture who the mayor is. This is how we wish to work, to connect local activists with each other on an international level, acknowledge that their local situation is specific and unique, but in meeting others, they realize that many times the problems and lack of progressive policies are more or less the same, and we have a lot to learn from each other. Thanks a lot for your attention.